Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Today's just going to be more of a chill wrap-up video type thing. So, back in September, the Fall into Reading challenge was posted, and me and a couple of my best friends decided to take part. Only I'm the only one that's like vlogging it, or I vlogged part of it, okay? I'm not a very good vlogger yet. That's what this channel needs to work on. I need to work on. Come here, Jelly. Come here, Bean. Yeah. So this Jelly Bean, he's in practically all the videos because he gets jealous when there's a camera that is not on him. But this Fall Into Reading challenge had 24 prompts for the big book, or for the big board. There was another one with 15 prompts, I believe. I might be wrong on that number. But I did 24 books. And as you can see by my stack, there are definitely not 24 books here. But I wrote down everything I read, the star reading, and a little bit of notes on all of them. I'm going to tell you right now, 2 of these are rereads. What? Alida, you reread? Yes, I did. I reread one book that I hadn't read since I was a teenager. So that's a while ago. And then I reread the last book I read in 2019. What? But that's so recent. I know. I'm so good, right? So let's just get into these. A lot of them I don't own anymore because I don't hold on to books that I've read and didn't like. It has to be a 4-star that I think I would reread, or a 5-star that I would definitely reread, in order for me to keep it. Now, there are mysteries and thrillers on here. I might have enjoyed them, but I don't reread a lot of thrillers. You have to really impress me or really shock me, and then I kind of can go back and take notes. Like Little Monsters by Kara Thomas. I really want to reread that next year. Take notes and see if I can guess what's going to happen, because that one shook me. I did not see that coming at all. No spoilers, so that's all I can say. But that one shook me to my core. So I would love to revisit that one. Maybe at a slower pace with my detective glasses on, and yeah, that'll be fun. But generally speaking, I don't keep a lot of books. I don't reread a ton. That's why it's so surprising that 2 of these are actually rereads. So with this extremely long intro, let's just do my wrap up. Jelly Bean, do you mind? Come here. Okay, he's gonna sit here. Alright, so the first book that I read, okay, I didn't read these in this order, but it's the order, like I'm gonna start here and go across and then go here and across, and you know, just because it seems easiest. So the first book was one of my rereads. This is Speak by Laurie, Howells, Anderson. This fits my YA prompt. So this is a very hard-hitting contemporary about this girl who gets bullied a lot. And I remember very much much identifying with it when I was younger, when I first read it. It was a good book, don't get me wrong. Today I'd probably give it 4 stars, but when I first read it, it meant the world to me, and I could very much see myself in this book. And that's what good writing does. So I still very much enjoy this. I just don't think that I'm at that significant age where it's gonna change my life like it did the first time. I do not own anymore. It's orange, yellow, or gold on the cover. For this book, I picked The Art of Racing in the Rain, which was a cute dog story. It teaches you, I think the tagline is something about learning to be human from the dog or something like that. It was entertaining. I just felt like it drug on a lot, and that there were parts of it that I just didn't care about, quite frankly. It's supposed to be like a hard-hitting contemporary. It wasn't as hard-hitting as I wanted. It wasn't as... I didn't get all the feels from it. I definitely loved the dog in that book. And I gave it 3.5 stars. So I rounded up to 4 stars. But it's not a bad book. It's just not my favorite. I've definitely read better dog books. So if you want a dog book, read A Dog's Purpose, which is on my shelf. Love that book. Alright, the third one is a beloved author. So, I could have done this 2 ways. I could have done an author that I've loved in the past, which technically there is a book in here that I could have used for that. Or just an author that is so hyped that every single person seems to love. I went with the latter. I went with the hyped author on BookTube, in the world. Just in general, this author is so loved. So I finally read a Neil Gaiman book. This was actually the second one that I read, because there's another one in this challenge. But I finally picked up Coraline. And honestly, I didn't know anything about it going into it. And it was kind of disappointing. I mean, I love the writing, and the premise was interesting enough. It's about Coraline, whose parents go away, and she gets, like, sucked into this alternate universe through a mirror, which when I was younger, mirrors terrified me. Like, not because, like, looking in a mirror and thing, but I always thought the mirrors were like an alternate universe, or like a portal to an alternate universe. So this definitely plays with that fear. And I used to think that ghosts lived in there and things like that. We don't need to talk about it. But this definitely plays with some of my fears. So I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It's a perfectly good book. But I read it right after I read a different book by him that was just top-notch, 5-star, amazing. So I was going into this expecting a lot, and it just fell a little bit flat. I still very much enjoyed it. I would still recommend it if you haven't read it. If you've been living under a rock like me, pick this book up. Then, the next one is a fantasy, which fantasy is so far outside of my comfort zone. So I was very scared for this one. But, you know, no surprise, it's my other Neil Gaiman book, The Graveyard Book. So this is a middle grade ghost fantasy story. It's got fantasy elements, but it's about this boy, Nobody Owens. His name is Nobody. He goes by Bod, though. But he is being raised by ghosts, and he lives in the graveyard. That's all you have to know going into it, because I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to tell you why he lives there or anything. You just have to find out for yourself. But this one I absolutely loved. 5 out of 5 stars. It was so much fun. The next one is, an author of color. For this, I picked The Proposal by Jasmine Gullery. So this is the second in a series. I know, again, we're both shocked. This is a companion novel series, which I've never read a companion novel series before. So this follows. Well, I'm going to talk about The Wedding Date for a different prompt. So I'm just going to combine them right now because The Wedding Date is the first in this. So for diverse characters, I picked Wedding Date, The Wedding Date by Jasmine Gullery, which was a 4.5 star read for me, honestly. So I was super excited to read the next in the series, which is The Proposal. Then my friend picked this to be on my November TBR. Because I got friend picked during my game. And it was like, I had to read it right away. So I picked it up maybe a week and a half after I finished The Wedding Date. So in this one, you follow Carlos, which is Drew's best friend in The Wedding Date, and Nick. So Nick goes to a baseball game with her boyfriend of 5 months who proposes to her on the big screen. And she's like, no, we don't know each other well enough. So cameras were up in her face, everyone was booing her, and it was just madness. until Carlos and his sister Angie come to her rescue. And then from there, things take off, and you know, it was just such a cute romance. So it starts off like, after he rescues her, she talks to her friends about him, and they're just like, well, he's so cute, so you should just hook up with him. You know, like, you don't want a relationship, it's fine. We know you don't want a relationship, but just hook up. So they start seeing each other as best friends with benefits, I guess. And then something goes wrong there, and love. So I liked this one way. Yes. I don't have the wedding date anymore because I enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. But I didn't think it would be something that I could read again. However, with this one, I would guilty pleasure read this any day of the week. So I think I'm going to keep this on my shelf for a very long time. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I'm keeping all of these. If I do decide that I'm not going to reread Coraline, which might happen, I might send this to my friend because she's trying to collect all of Neil Gaiman's books, but I don't know. We'll have to see. Then we had a graphic novel, which I read, Poppy and the Last Lagoon by Matt Kent and Brian Hurt. This was just a really fun adventure, but I think it was only 4. I really enjoyed the art style, and it was a quirky little adventure. Then, I don't own this one anymore, but the next one was Supernatural. So for that one, I picked Mostly Ghostly by R.L. Stein. It's part of the Goosebumps series? No, it's not. It's part of one of those series. It was perfectly fine. I gave it 3 stars. I'm not the intended audience, and it definitely showed in that book. But for a middle grade person, I think it's great. It just wasn't my cup of tea. Then there's historical fiction. So for historical fiction, I was going to read Water for Elephants, but I'm not a historical fiction kind of gal either. So I read Paper Girls, Volume 1, which this takes place in 1988. A group of 4 12-year-old girls are newspaper delivery girls, and they're out on Halloween night delivering papers when some kind of epic adventure starts. I found that I was super hyped for this, and that I was so excited to read this, okay? But I was let down. So I wanted this epic high-stakes adventure, and I was bored through most of it. So I think I gave it 3 stars. I did. I gave it 3 stars. It was only okay. I'm actually gonna unhaul this one. Then takes place in the fall. This is another one that I no longer own. It was Through the Woods by Emily Carroll, which is another graphic novel. It was perfectly fine. It takes place, well, I mean, they're kind of spooky stories, so they're Halloween stories, but there are 5 Halloween stories about, like, going through, one's about walking through the woods. Well, one is about her dad leaving, and then she thinks someone's watching, so she goes into the woods where her dad disappeared from. Another one is like a haunted house, and a couple other ones that were just too weird for me. So there are a total of 5 short stories in Through the Woods. The first time I read it, I really, really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars back in August. Then I reread it because of Halloween. And I kind of felt like it was lacking. So I only gave it 4 stars. It's still good, and I would still recommend it. I just won't reread it, because the more I reread it, the less I like it. So I'm going to keep it at a 4-star read and not read it again. So that's why it's already unhauled. Then, okay, my nonfiction pick was Brain on Fire by Suzanne Callahan? I'm very sorry if I mispronounced that. So I found this at the thrift store, you know, dollar price tag. Don't know what's in here. Oh. Guess a bookmark. I hate reading nonfiction, especially when it's about someone's life, because it's like I'm devaluing their life or rating their story, but that's not what I'm intending here. I had already seen the movie on Netflix. I really, really enjoyed the movie, even though there were parts that were slower and kind of more boring. I kind of feel like a lot of true stories are going to get that way because it's real life. That's fine. But since I'd already seen the movie, I wasn't really surprised by anything. I'd give this 3 stars. I think that they found the perfect person, Chloe Grace Morissette, to play her in the movie, and I think I like the movie a little bit better. But there's nothing wrong with this. If you like nonfiction and you like learning about people's life and mysterious illnesses, definitely pick this up. I think I'm going to unhaul it, though. I don't see myself rereading it. Okay. Then, published before 2020, so this one I don't own anymore. But I finally got on the bandwagon and read You by Caroline Kepnes. Moving on. Alright, moving on to another one that I don't own anymore. That is The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness for the challenge to read a sci-fi. I hated it. Oh my gosh. Standalone. This one I don't own anymore either. It's supposed to be a thriller. And since I just used air quotes, you probably know how I feel about this book. I picked Before I Go to Sleep, which was yet another 1-star read. It's supposed to be this thriller about this woman who falls asleep every night and forgets what happened that day. And it's been like that for like 24 years. So she can't remember any of her new memories or anything. And then you kind of live her life with her over and over and over and over and over and over and over until something changes, something happens, and she starts to remember. Honestly, for a thriller, there were no twists that I didn't see coming, which I never see the twist coming. But for this one, I guessed it. And I was just very disappointed. That's a 1-star read. Let's just move on. Diverse characters. We already talked about it. It was the wedding day. Classic. So this classic I have since unhauled. Yep. So for the classic, I read The Princess Bride by William Goldman. Do yourself a favor and just watch the movie. I gave it 2 stars. Alright, then we have Contemporary, which I actually do own this one, so I'm not sure. Oh. So for a contemporary, I picked Cut by Patricia McCormick. This is a hard-hitting YA contemporary about Callie who cuts herself, and now she got caught cutting, so she's in this residential treatment center for depressed girls or depressed people, and for suicidal people who cut. Thankfully I've never cut, but I have been that girl who wanted to a long time ago. So reading about Callie was very, very hard emotionally. I loved this book. I love the books that take you there emotionally and push your limits. And I love those books that are hard to read because, like I've said before, they are the things that are hard to read, the things that are hard to talk about are the things that need to be talked about the most. The things that need to be read. So I really, really enjoyed this book. I gave it 5 stars. Book that was published this year, I read You Are Not Alone by Hendrix and Sarah Pickenin. So this is the most recent psychological thriller that these two have wrote together, meaning that I've read all 3 that they've wrote. The first being The Wife Between Us, 5 star, amazing, completely loved it. The Anonymous Girl was next. It was okay, but not as good as The Wife Between Us, so I gave it 4 stars. You Are Not Alone was disappointing. I think I gave it 3 stars. I was really, really disappointed with this. Was that I just wasn't shocked about anything in this book. It just didn't do it for me. So I'm going to be unhauling this one. There was no shock factor. It was a very slow-paced and boring thriller. I honestly just didn't care by the end of it. I was like, that sucks. And it's sad because the first chapter was so promising. It was about this woman who sees this other woman jump in front of the subway. That was an epic start. And then it went downhill from that. Okay, and then for the leaves on the cover, I was going to pick Chevy Stevens thriller. I just didn't get around to reading it. So I definitely want to read it probably in 2021. It's on my highly anticipated books. It's Those Girls. I read by her. Loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. Very hard to read though. as there are very, very triggering content in there, such as abuse, assault, kidnapping, rape, those types of things. But I like the outcome of the book, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it without sounding like I'm a sadistic creep who likes reading that kind of stuff. I don't. It's very hard for me to get through that kind of content, but I enjoy reading the hard-hitting topics that maybe we steer clear of to kind of get a bigger message than that. I hope that makes sense. I hope I'm not just like rambling. But for Leaves on the Cover, I ended up reading Cake, Volume 1. Art Jumble Presents. So it's by like 10 different authors. It's literally just a graphic novel. It's like an anthology of graphic novels. There are 10 different stories in here by 11 different... No. There are 10 different stories in here by 9 different authors. I just very much enjoyed it. But if you look, there's leaves up here and to the side. So I'm counting it. But yeah, I enjoyed this. I give it 5 stars. I actually have a reading vlog of me just reading this and reacting to it. I'll link it somewhere. Probably up above and down below. Okay. Then I read a thriller that I no longer have. I read The Silent Patient by Mcadalis. I think I'm still pronouncing that wrong. But initially I was like speechless and I loved it. Gave it 4.5 stars, but after thinking about it, the writing, I would definitely pick up another book by Mcadalis and hopefully learn to say their name right. But I will definitely be picking up more books by this author. I did not, at first, I really enjoyed the twist, but kind of thinking about it, it was so obvious that I had like taken it out of my brain. I'm like, oh no, that's the obvious thing. Of course it's not going to be that. And then it was that. So I understand where the twist came from, but I wasn't shocked by it. I didn't love it. So for that reason, I'm going to give it 3 stars. And I did ultimately unhaul it because I know the twist. And it was a perfectly fine book. I don't think I'd ever reread that one, but I definitely want to get more from this author. So the author gets 5 stars because his writing was so addictive. Like, I did not want to put that book down. Actually, I read that book, that entire book, in one night. And I don't do that. I enjoy my sleep. But I could not put it down. I had to know what was coming next. What was about to happen. I just had to get my answers. So I read that in one sitting, which I don't read very much in one sitting. Unless it's my middle grade, because those are, or graphic novels I can read in one sitting. But I feel like those are cheating, because, they're tiny. Okay, then the next one is another reread. So I first read this in December of 2019. This was the last book that I read in 2019. And I read it again already in less than a year. Who am I? But for the prompt of romance, I read Tell Me 3 Things by Julie Buxbaum, which is a YA contemporary romance about this girl named Jess who has just moved to California, like Los Angeles area, where her dad just got remarried from after his wife died, or her mom, like 2 years before that, I believe. And she's adjusting to her new life. And then SN, somebody nobody, starts emailing her, and then it turns into IMing, and every day it's tell me 3 things about you. Because it's a mystery to her who she's talking to, but she thinks she's fallen in love with him, or who she's assuming is a him. And SN knows who she is and is totally like smitten with her, and then you finally find out who it was, and oh my god, it just, this book just warms my heart. I gave it 5 stars the second time I read it as well. But this book just has me so smitten. I love everything about it. There's not a single problem with this book. So it's like one of those YA romances that is not the rule, but the exception to the rule. That, oh my god. I could reread this more. I read A Middle Grade, The BFG by Roald Dahl. I'm trying to read all of his books because I didn't start reading them till this year. Ow. Till this year. I love his writing. The BFG was not my favorite out of the ones I've read so far. I gave it 3 stars. It was cute. I'm not the intended audience, and it shows. Okay, a sequel. I don't own this one, but I listened to it on audio through my library. I listened to The Infinite Sea by Rick Yancey, which is the sequel to The Fifth Wave, and oh my gosh, I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I just loved everything about it. So, if you don't know, The Fifth Wave is, I can't really tell you much about The Infinite Sea because spoilers, but The Fifth Wave follows Cassie Sullivan during an alien invasion, which me and aliens, I usually say no to everything alien related, but for some reason The Fifth Wave just sucked me in and has kept me in that world for ever since I read The Fifth Wave. But you follow Cassie as a survivor of the first 4 waves. They are in the 5th wave now of what the aliens are doing to rid the world of humanity. And her brother gets saved and taken to this military base so that he's protected from the aliens. And they were supposed to come back for her, but when they don't, after a few days, she starts to wonder why. And then she kind of goes on this epic adventure to break into to the military base and be reunited with her brother. And that's the entire book. And then The Infinite Sea was the second one in that series, and oh my god, I just love this adventure, this alien, this sci-fi. I hate sci-fi too, but somehow it works in The Infinite Sea and The Fifth Wave. I read that entire series, actually, so I also read The Last Star, but, you know, we'll pretend. We'll not talk about it. Okay. A new to me author is yet another middle grade book, which is The One and Only Ivan by Catherine Applegate. Oh my gosh. So this is based on a true story of a gorilla that was put in a shop in Washington State, and he had no friends. He didn't see anyone, and it just broke my heart. But this is, you follow Ivan and Bob. No, Bob is the dog. Ivan and, oh shoot, I forget the elephant's name. Ruby. Ruby and Ivan are in enclosures next to each other in this store. And it's just really sad because it was based on a true story about this gorilla who was locked in a storefront and didn't see anyone or another animal for like 25 years. That is almost my entire lifetime. That this gorilla just stayed there, and it tore so hard at my heartstrings. But it's like written like kind of in verse almost. It was a very easy read. I read it in one night. And it obviously affected me. I'm still crying about it. It broke my heart a little. But I definitely recommend. I also... Oh, well, I haven't shown you this haul yet. But today I went book shopping and I got another Catherine Applegate because her writing was so amazing in this. And I do know this for middle grade. I'm not the intended audience. But I don't care. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. And then the final book that I forgot to talk about that was actually up here, right here. Yeah, I forgot to talk about it. It's a mystery. I don't own it anymore. It was one of the first books that Used Books Monthly sent me. It is A Bend in the Road by Nicholas Sparks. There was a time when I read everything Nicholas Sparks. I didn't read all of his books, but I read quite a few. I really enjoyed them. I never picked up A Bend in the Road. I am conflicted about this one though. I really, really, really enjoyed the mystery aspect of the book. So you follow, oh my gosh, I can't remember his name. You follow this guy who is a single parent to his kid because his wife died like 2 years before this. And then this woman moves to town. She's teaching. So basically she's Jude's teacher. I think that's his name. I don't know for sure. I'm going to go with Jude though, because for some reason that's sticking out in my head. But she's Jude's teacher, and she says that he's far behind, and so they get like extra tutoring sessions, and you know, the dad ultimately, starts crushing on her, and lucky for him, the teacher's crushing on him too, so they get together, and then as he's starting to date her, he's still looking into the murder of his previous wife, and he's still trying to figure out who did it. So the mystery aspect. I loved the mystery. I was shocked by who did it, by who done it. The romance, though. I typically love Nicholas Sparks' romance. I didn't love the romance aspect of A Bend in the Road. I much preferred the mystery aspect. So I'm very conflicted because the mystery was like way up here, the romance was kind of right here, and I feel like he was not ready to start a serious relationship, because at that point it seemed like his heart was still with his wife, which makes sense. You know, she died young and she was kind of, okay, I can't tell you what happened because spoilers, but she was taken away from him too soon in life. She was young, he was young, and I just feel like with that part of his life not concluded, him not getting justice for his wife, I understand why he wanted all of that. But I don't think he was ready to be in such a intimate relationship with someone. And it just felt very disconnected to me. Maybe I'm the unpopular opinion here, but if you've read A Bend in the Road by Nicholas Sparks, please let me know in the comments below what you thought. If you're kind of like me and you like the mystery, but not so much the romance, and you felt very disconnected in the story. So I ultimately gave it 3 stars. It was okay, but I did complete the 24-book Fall into Reading challenge. So thank you for hanging out with me and talking to me about what I read for this challenge. If you participated in this challenge, please tell me in the comments below how it's going, if you finished, or anything you really want. I love when you guys talk to me in the comments. So I will see you guys later.